This is episode 2 in a series of videos that I'm doing all about how to learn formulas inside of Notion. In this video, we're going to make a workout dashboard with a focus on doing basic calculations in Notion, building a calculator in Notion and why that may be useful. Also a little bit on formatting time and working with time values. As well, I want to show you how you can actually compare two separate rows or consecutive entries to one another in the same database using a formula. Included in this dashboard is going to be a calorie counter connected to a food diary, a workout planner, a cardio tracker, particularly for runners, and a user database that collects everything in that dashboard and returns progress from week to week. The functions that we're going to use in this episode are a recap of if statements, toNumber, format, absolute, round, and date between, and an introduction to POW, mod, time formatting, empty, date ranges, and a little bit of regex. Now let's get right into making this. So let's just go over this dashboard really quickly. At the top, we're going to configure this calorie calculator to figure out how many calories one needs to maintain their weight generally, and how many calories to lose weight generally. So the first thing we're going to have to figure out in order to find the average calories to maintain weight is something called a BMR. And it's a simple calculation. There's one for women and one for men. So what we'll need in each one is weight in pounds, height in inches, and age in years. So this can easily translate into a Notion calculator by just plugging in those properties. We have weight here, and I'll just expose myself to 26, and height in inches, and level of exercise, I'd say is moderate. Okay, that's all we need to find the BMR. So for this, we're going to use if statements, and there's only going to be two of them. So if you remember from last episode, if statements go like this. If this, then that, comma, if this, then that, otherwise that. And then close out twice. So we'll start with female and go if property sex equals F in quotes, and that's a capital F, so make sure it looks exactly like what is inside this property. I would not put in a lowercase f, for instance. If this is the case, we just want to plug in this formula. So 655 plus 4.35 times property weight plus 4.7 multiplied by property in height inches minus 4.7 multiplied by property in age. Cool. Now let's go over to man and say if property sex equals M, we're going to do a different formula. So 66 plus 6.23 times property in pounds plus 12.7 multiplied by property in height in inches minus 6.8 multiplied by property in years. Otherwise, let's put 0. I found this BMR calculation upon Googling, so if there's any calculators you want to make that can enhance your dashboard, a quick Google can probably help you, and most calculations will translate into these formulas. So I labeled this BMR hide because I don't really want to see it in the dashboard, but I am going to reference it. So let's just hide it for now and figure out calories to maintain. To do this, we're going to use something called the Harris-Benedict formula. It's pretty straightforward. So according to this formula, little or no exercise would be the BMR multiplied by 1.2, and then going down the list, light exercise, BMR multiplied by 1.375, and so on. So now this is just a series of if statements. It looks like there are 5 of them. So if this, then that. If this, then that. If this, then that. And this is nice to do if you're having trouble keeping track of a bunch of conditions, because it can get overwhelming at a certain point. You can also nest if statements, but I'll probably do that in another video. So 3, 4, 5, and then the false condition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to close it out. So the first one is going to be property exercise equals little to none. I'm going to say property BMR hide multiplied by 1.2 if property exercise And this is just going down the list, somewhat active. And these are all of my select properties inside of exercise are labeled exactly like this. That's why I'm using these very particular phrases. Then if property exercise equals moderate, can go prop BMR hide multiplied by 1.55. And if property exercise equals very active, prop BMR hide times 1.725. We don't need that last condition because the only other instance within all of these 5 selections, we've already filled out the first 4, the only other instance will be the 5th, so we can make that the false condition. Plug that in here and just say prop BMR hide multiplied by the last one, which is 1.9. And with that, we can actually take away a parentheses because we've taken away a condition. Now we have this. If you want to round this, like we did in the last video, the round function is very simple. Just round, open parentheses, and close it at the very end. And now we have calories to maintain. So let's test this a little bit and say this person is 150 pounds, 26, say 5'9", a male. This property will start changing. Course level of exercise, if I had little to none, it would be less. If I were extremely active, it would be more. Now let's figure out this calories weight loss section. So over here I have pounds to lose, weeks to lose it, and then I'm going to have a calculation that will tell me based off of these 2 properties how many pounds I'd be losing per week, and then we'll be able to find the calories weight loss. And that will be calories to eat per day if you're losing this amount of weight in this amount of time. So let's say 5 pounds in 5 weeks is prop pounds to lose divided by prop weeks to lose it. And that'll give us 1. For weight loss, we're going to use that pounds to lose per week and go property calories to maintain that we found over here and subtract property pounds to lose per week. And from there, I believe it's 3,500 calories to lose a pound. Multiply it by 3,500, then divide by 7 days in the week. And this will be a daily calorie intake. Again, all of this is super, super general and simplified. Now we're going to connect to this food diary. We have the time of day. I thought it'd be nice to include that. A meal. And I have already set up breakfast, lunch, snack, and dinner. You can add more to that. And the number of calories for this entry. So eggs would probably be like 70 calories. So let's add a property that connects to our calculator. So calculator connection. Make it a relation. And we're going to go ahead and find that Calorie Calculator database. Here's Benedict formula. Now that we have that, let's connect the calculator. It's only 1 row. We come into here, here it is. And I'll just say related to diary. Now that we have that, let's say in this scenario, I want to lose weight, right? I want to lose 5 pounds in 5 weeks. So I'm going to create a rollup. Weight loss, the same that it is labeled in the calculator, and go to rollup. In here, I'm going to find that calculator connection, go to property, and find calories weight loss. If I wanted to maintain, I would click this maintain, but I want to lose weight. So let's put in some examples of maybe what I ate this day. Let's just really quickly put in lunch was 340 calories, a snack was 150, dinner was 670. 1,230 calories have been consumed. What I want to do is subtract that from this property we just rolled up, 1689. And in this calories left, I want to see what calories I have left. In order to find that sum, I am going to have to relate every single one of these rows to itself. Let me explain. So just like how we related to the calculator, instead, if I go to relation, I'm going to try to find food diary, no syncing, and now I've connected to myself. So when I go in, I'm going to see eggs and lunch and snack and dinner, and what I'm going to do is just add every single row even the empty ones, just so that I have them all there. And then create another rollup that goes calorie consumed. Rollup, choose child relations, and calorie. Let me just open up this page really quick. As well, I'm going to calculate the sum. So I'm not just seeing a bunch of calories. It will sum up to 1230. Now we're just going to do a simple subtraction. We're going to subtract calorie weight loss to calorie consumed to get what is left. Prop calorie weight loss minus prop calories consumed. It's going to tell me that calorie weight loss is not a number. That is because that will show a text value. So I want to show a number. To do that, just click sum and it will turn into a number. And now it should work. Minus property calories consumed. 459 calories left. The rest of these rows are going to be zeros. You'll see that calculation only at the top here. It is daily. There's no archiving or anything. Also, you're probably not going to want to delete these rows when you're done for the day. That might be tempting to do. All of these child relations will also disappear if you do that, and you'll have to relate them. So instead, just go into the cells and delete them manually. That's the only setback, in my opinion. I also include this food calorie counter and calculator from WebMD, where you can just plug in certain foods and see how many calories they are. Also, if you want to add a new row, say you need more than 12 rows, what I would do is add a new row and give it a name, like new. So that when you go in to add it, you can search for new up here and add it to the list. Otherwise, it would be just another empty row that will get caught up in the mix with all of the other entries, and then just delete it. Now, let's go into this user info before we dive into Workout Planner and running. To start off, we're going to find BMI. This is, again, a simple calculation you can find online. Here it is for pounds, and then for kilograms if you're interested. So it's 703 multiplied by pounds divided by height in inches to the power of 2. So I'm going to show you both a function and a standard symbol that can calculate this 2 here. So first of all, let's just write it out. 703 multiplied by property weight divided by property height. One way to do this is to use the POW function, and we're going to open and close it outside of height. Add a comma inside and say 2. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it that's shorter is to use this little caret and then 2. So this number is crazy. Let's round it down using the round function. Round, 22. Now, if you want it to be a little bit more exact, we can use round 100 multiplied by. Come over here at the end and divide by 100. You can also plug in 1,000 on both ends, even more exact, but we'll leave it at 100. So from here, we can take it a step forward. I also found this BMI guide to show what number BMI correlates to underweight, normal weight, overweight, obese. So we can use those if statements again to return a text value. For now, let's just create a new test property to keep these separate. And let's go with plugging in these if statements again. Go if this, then that. And I believe there are 4 conditions. But this last one here, we're going to make this the false condition like we did before. So really there'll only be 3. This, then that, and then the false condition, and then close it out by 3. So what I want to do first is copy this, because we are using this whole calculation here to determine these if statements. So the first one, we just copied that BMI calculation. Let's just paste it in and say if this calculation is less than or equal to, I believe it is 18.5. If the BMI is less than that, let's just return maybe emoji going down and say underweight, and another emoji going down. Close it out, paste it in. Let's say less than or equal to 24.9 is going to be normal weight. And maybe if you're looking to be normal weight, put a check mark and then paste it in again and say less than or equal to 29.9 will be overweight. Let's do an arrow up and just go overweight. And then the false condition for obese. And we'll put 2 of these arrows going up and 3 parentheses to close it. 110, it should come up as underweight. Maybe like 150 overweight, 190 obese. Okay, so everything looks like it's working out. Let's actually view this inside of here. All right, cool. Let's assume we've only tracked week 1 and 2. Week 3 is going to come out as underweight because technically it is 0. If there's ever an instance where I haven't filled a property in, I just wanted to leave it empty. To do this, we're going to add a condition to the beginning of this whole formula, and it's going to be this, then that. Let's just put that there for now. Add a parentheses at the end. I'm going to use a function called empty. So empty, open parentheses, prop, if weight is empty, close it out. Then I just want an empty space. And now you can see it disappears. This week's BMI, I can do the same thing. I can say if property weight, put empty at the beginning here, open parentheses, close, just leave it empty. Otherwise, give me the BMI. If you look down here, we have a type mismatch error, and it says that this empty space is not a number. Like we have done in the past, turning a number into a text by formatting it in order for it to cooperate with another property type, we are going to have to turn this into a number in order to cooperate with this BMI number. So to do this, I'm going to say toNumber and then close this out. So now this empty space is technically a number. Now week 3 is completely empty until we fill in that weight. I have height as a formula because your height generally doesn't change unless you're a minor. So just plug in your height here and it will always show up whenever you create a new week. So if I were to do this, week 4, height will still be 65 inches. Let's combine this number, this BMI, with this test. I want this emoji to appear right at the end of our BMI number, and I'm going to delete this test property. And let's format this into text. Now that it is text, we can add it to here, and I want to delete these text values here, this underweight. That's not necessary. Let's just put in 1 arrow down at the end. Get rid of this here, and obese, we'll just leave 2 arrows up. All right, now let's put this number in front of it. So starting with underweight, everything between this comma and this comma is showing up in the cell. If I want to add this number, I'll have to copy it, paste it between these commas. It's kind of hard to see here, but I'm just going to paste it. Just do a space, paste, space, plus sign. So now everything between these commas is going to show up as the number plus the symbol. And I'll do the same thing here. Space, just paste that in, space plus. I don't really like how this is looking here, so I'm going to add a space before this emoji. Do it again for overweight, and again for obese. Put a space before these symbols, and we should be good. Let's test it out. 110, we have that 18.3 plus going down, 132, 150 going up, and 190 double up. All right, cool. Now at the beginning here, we have our if weight is empty to have an empty space. We don't need to make that toNumber now that everything is formatted into text here. Actually, we'll delete this one and just rename this to this week's BMI. Let's say this one was 129.5. See everything updating. Now what I want to do is find the discrepancy between these weeks. And I want to see the discrepancy in BMI. So first of all, I'm going to say last week, give it a relation property and relate it to itself. So user info, no syncing. put it in between here, and this is week 3, so I'm going to grab week 2. Then I'm going to grab a rollup that will show me week 2's BMI. So last BMI, roll that up, select last week, and this week's BMI. Now we want to find the difference between last week and this week. Add a formula property called discrepancy. Hopefully I spelled that right. These are text values. Can't subtract text values. So we are going to use the toNumber function. So toNumber, this week's BMI minus toNumber, last BMI. So it looks like we went down 0.41 in BMI between these 2 weeks. Really quickly, I want to show you something. Let's say this emoji is in the front of this cell. This formula now will not work because toNumber is only going to grab a number if it's at the front of a string of text values. I know that's really specific, but I wanted you to know about that. Now I want to add some more emojis because I like emojis. Naturally, you might want to do this, just format it, and then plus the emoji. You can see that this number is very strange looking, and I don't like it. So before we format, I suppose we have to round this number. And I'm just going to block all of this out first, and then round it, add another parentheses, divide by 100, put 100 in here, times again. Then we're going to format it like so. And then add maybe an emoji going down that's dashed. Add a space before it. Now let's do another test formula to make an if statement. So if this calculation is negative, I want to show it like this, except I also want to make this an absolute number. So I want to copy this, just the calculation inside, and say if this is less than 0, I want a dashed arrow going down. If not, a dashed arrow going up. Close it out. Now let's say in week 4, my weight went up to 133. This arrow should be pointing up. Let's add in this formatted return into what I want the cell to look like. So add this right in between these 2 commas, delete this, and I'm going to paste it. And we should see it here. I'm going to do the same thing for it going up, except I'm going to change this arrow to up. And it should work. Again, let's name this discrepancy. I spelled that right. And delete this one. Is instead of seeing the BMI here with the emoji, or maybe we'll keep it there, I'll add discrepancy as well. And let's start filling in these last weeks. For week 2, it'd be week 1. For week 4, it would be week 3. So now we're having another issue with empty. So week 1 isn't going to have a last week there. So what I want to add at the beginning here is, again, another if statement. So if that, then that, parentheses at the end. So if empty property last week, I want it to be empty. All right, cool. I really like how this looks. Okay, so let's go into this running database pretty quickly. So looking at this, you'll probably first notice that the title of these pages are dates. If you want to put a date as the title, just go at today. Now, before we get into this, let's connect it to that user database. Let's say week and relate it to user database. Or I want to connect this to last week. So week 1, that was the week. Pretty sure all of these are within the same week as well, between the 30th and the 5th. So when we go back into the dashboard and go into user info, week 1 related to running appears. So in week 1, all running sessions. The next property is stopwatch. On September 4th, Started the run at 6:25 a.m., ended at 7:35 a.m. Now let's say I ran 5 miles. Let's say here I ran 4. Now I want to find the time elapsed from this stopwatch property. So I want to find the number of hours and the minutes. To test this, let's use the date between. In order to use date between for a date range, you're going to start with the end of the date range, so end of property stopwatch, comma, the start of prop stopwatch. Let's first say hours. Now, if you did watch the last video, you'll know that something like hours may not be as accurate. You might want to put in minutes divided by 60 to give a more exact number. For now, let's just say hours and format it. And we will add the letter capital H, then maybe space colon to leave for the minutes on the other side. And then go plus format, sort of use this same date between sequence minus that format for now. Instead of saying hours, let's say minutes. Now this is the total minutes. I want to see the minutes left over after calculating the hours. For this, you're going to use the function mod. So let's use this property here to test mod. Mod goes this divided by that, and it's going to return what's left over. And date between the end of property stopwatch and the start of property stopwatch in minutes. We're going to put in the number 60, and as you can see, 70 minutes is an hour plus 10 minutes, so what's remaining is this 10. So that's how that mod function is useful, especially for time like this. To make this simpler, we can take this mod out, and there is a symbol to use. It will be the percentage sign, and it will give you the same thing. So going back over to here, let's say minutes 60. We put a space after that colon, and then add a capital M. So we have 1 hour and 10 minutes here from 9 to 9:54 a.m., 54 minutes and 0 hours. Let's find miles per hour. This one's pretty straightforward. We're going to divide the hours elapsed by the miles. First of all, I want to make sure that we do something like this. Let's do end of property stopwatch and start of property stopwatch. I want to do minutes divided by 60. I'm going to go prop miles divided by this. Except I'm going to make sure that this is isolated. Okay, and then I'm going to round all this so it's not a crazy number. And we are going roughly 4 miles per hour for this first session and 6 for the 2 down here. Now I want to format this so I can add plus mph space here. All right, now let's move on to the next property and figure what's the average minutes per mile. So date between props end of property stopwatch to start property stopwatch in minutes, and we'll just keep it like that. Divide prop miles. See what that looks like. There's some crazy numbers, so let's round it. So it looks like 14-minute miles here and about a 9-minute mile and a 10-minute mile down here. Now, because I like minimizing properties, I want to combine this minute mile with this miles per hour. I want them in the same cell. So first, let's format this and go plus minute mile maybe. Now to combine these two, first, let's just copy this. I could just go plus and paste it in. That does not look very nice. So I'm going to use something called regex, regular expression, to make a line separation to create a new line so that minute mile is always placed below miles per hour. To do that, I'm going to add an empty space first between the two, go \n. And no matter how we figure this with, it will always stack on top of each other. So just like all the other examples, I am going to compare the last run to the current run. So let's put last run, make it a relation to itself. Let's create a rollup to find the miles ran in the last session. So I want to compare miles. I don't really care about how fast I'm running. I just want to keep increasing the number of miles that I'm running. So last miles, find last run, miles, and sum. Make sure it's a number. Make that a formula. So for this one, we don't have to use toNumber because there is no text going on here. It is just a number. So we can just go property miles minus property last miles. I have an extra property there. And this one here should not have a result because there is no sessions that are before the 30th of August. To start this one off and say if this then that. So if empty property last run, this empty space is not a number since we're dealing with numbers. Again, toNumber empty space. There we go. Coming back here, week 1, all of our running sessions populate if we connect it to week 1. Now what I want to do is find the sum of miles I ran for the entire week. Go to rollup, click on all running sessions, miles, and the sum. So we ran. Comparing 2 singular rows at a time is best. You can compare multiple, and I can go through that if you want me to in the future, but it's pretty much the same idea. You're relating and rolling up a sum. What's also nice that I didn't point out is that because I'm relating all of these dates to week 1, I don't really need a date property here or like a date range to show me what week 1 is or what dates it encompasses. I can just check down here to kind of determine that on my own, but that's just another me wanting to minimize property use. But you can totally add a date range there if you'd like. So for the last bit of this video, this has been a long one. I'm going to connect this workout planner to this user info as well. I'm going to create a new property called week, relate it to user info. Just say week 1. Now this should be connected as well. I'm going to add a completion rate using those complete boxes. Roll up from all workouts, complete, and percent checked. So this user completed 75% of their week's planned workouts. I like that it's not too much. For me, it's not too much. It's like just enough. And I'm gonna clean this up, make it look nice, turn it into a template for you to retrieve down below. And the next episode is probably going to be at the end of next week. And I will see you guys next time.